Yo, me and Roy a couple days ago, sorry about that rooster. Me and Roy a couple days ago, we got to interview this guy named Van Taylor. The dude has been through everything. He was on the Comeback podcast a little bit ago, and he talks about his story growing up in the church, leaving, doing anything and everything, and then coming back, going on a mission, and then he's just got back from his mission. So crazy cool guy. It'll be split into two parts because we just had him tell stories. So hope you guys enjoy. We love you. Peace.
So we actually brought you on here because we only wanted to talk about what the drug game is like in Utah.
Well, I can tell you all about that, my friend. Let me tell you about this. Fentanyl everywhere. Xanax is flooding the streets. Everyone does acid. When people leave the church, boy, they leave the church. Like, you don't see someone who just like casually like changes their cover photo from a picture of the temple to like a picture of like some cows on a farm or something. Like, it's like they're posting anti, they get a tattoo, they like double pierce their nose, they get divorced, they shave their head, they dye their hair, like all these things. But he runs up to one of the trail walkers, grabs a rock file from out of their pack, and runs back and goes, or no, Michael's ahead of it at this point. So he runs up to the trail walker, grabs it, runs up to Michael. Michael's still laughing. And he just runs up and goes right here in the temple, straight in Michael's head. And he just drops. And like if I knew that was an option, dude, 100%. No question. Like, bro, cook my knees, I'm chill. If I could get a burrito or like some normal food, like, I'm so down. So.
Okay. Sweet. Well, welcome back to He's the GOAT podcast. I'm Roy. That's my little brother, Ket.
What's up?
Go ahead, say hi, Ket. And then we got Van Taylor in as one of our guests for today. Van, go ahead and say hi.
Yeah, how's it going? Van Taylor.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, sometimes our guests don't even know. Our podcast is called He's the GOAT podcast because Jesus Christ is the greatest of all time. And when we talk about Jesus, sometimes Kat and I get a little bit too excited and we're like, oh, he's the greatest, bro. He's the GOAT. And we just get so excited about it. So that's why it's called He's the GOAT podcast.
Oh, well, the story, and let me tell you a story of how it came to be. I have a coworker who he's an inactive member, but one time we were talking about church and the gospel, and he goes, look, he said verbatim, he goes, look, obviously Christ, and he kind of looked around, he's like, the GOAT. But, and then he's like, but I'm not going to Chipotle. And anyway, so that's where we got the name.
I love it.
Oh man, Van, you have such a what's the word? An innocent face, my guy. You say you have such an innocent face. Not that you're not innocent. I believe you're an innocent guy, but your background would beg to differ a little bit.
Yes.
So we actually brought you on here because we only wanted to talk about what the drug game is like in Utah.
Well, I can tell you all about that, my friend. Let me tell you about this. Fentanyl everywhere. Xanax is flooding the streets. Everyone does acid.
Oh man, dude, that's gonna get clipped. Which is it's interesting that Utah tends to be a place that people can find drugs easily. Van, why do you think that is, bro? Like, genuinely, I've always wondered, but why do people find it so easily?
I think honestly, it's that in Utah, I think almost like the cops are like kind of like, I don't know if this is still the case, but at least back when I was involved in things, like a little bit almost like naive, kind of thinking that that just doesn't really happen that often. And like, so for example, like this is crazy, but basically we had a guy that we sold some stuff to, okay? And at this time, he decided he was going to take his life. So we sold him, we didn't know this, right, at the time, but we sold him some Xanax. We didn't know this. He's like, all right, I'm done with life. I'm going to take my life. So he took like 7 bars of Xanax one night and fell asleep for 3 days. Didn't move, didn't wake up. And so, which first of all, he's lucky to be alive because the stuff we were selling, it all came from online. So it's like 90% chance it was cut with fentanyl. But anyways, so he's lucky to be alive, right? But anyway, so after the 3 days, they called the UVU police. And the law is, if the ambulance comes and it's something to do with a drug overdose, the cops are not supposed to or not allowed to ask anything about like, hey, where did the drugs come or who sold them or anything like that. Because what's important is the life of the person that overdosed. And they don't want people that are overdosing on drugs to not call the cops or not call an ambulance out of fear they're going to get arrested or get their dealers busted, anything like that, right? So, but they pulled up and they just asked them, the girlfriend, tons of questions. They're like, where'd you get this? Who sold it? Tell us how to access all this stuff, which is way against the rules, right? So anyways, so then they pulled up and these two cops, I mean, we got our apartment raided, which is what happened, but it wasn't like the SWAT. It was just two cops that pulled up and very unfortunate timing. We literally had a party going on when this whole thing happened, which was super unfortunate. Well, now it's fortunate, right? I'm glad this happened.
Yeah, in hindsight 2020, it's fortunate, but
exactly. Yeah, exactly. So then they came in and we didn't store anything in our apartment, so they raided our whole place and they're looking for stuff and so they found like weed and all these pipes and bongs and stuff, and so they got us for that. But they asked us about like where the Xanax was, and of course we're like, oh, we have no idea what you're talking about. Like, and we never kept it at our apartment where we like primarily resided. So, but anyways, yeah. So the reason why I say that whole story is because the cops, I think at this time were like, it didn't happen that often. So when some kid overdosed on Xanax, they're like, oh my gosh, like you got to tell us everything. Like where'd it come from? What's this? What's that? All these things, right? And yeah. So I think that's part of it. Now I would say drugs are so easy to get in Utah because it's like when people leave the church, boy, they leave the church. Like, you don't see someone who just like casually like changes their cover photo from a picture of the temple to like a picture like some cows on a farm or something. Like, it's like they're posting anti, they get a tattoo, they like double pierce their nose, they get divorced, they shave their head, they dye like all these things happen, right? So it's like, so I think that's part of it, that like when people leave, they're like, bro, I am swan diving off the path and I'm going. Take me to the building. Like, so.
I didn't even think about drug dealers, if they really just like made anti-podcasts.
The swan.
Yes.
Dude, drug dealers, if they made anti-podcasts and then just were like, if you want to leave the church, link below, and then they just sell you drugs from that. Dude,
yeah,
that's hilarious. Dude, that is interesting. The culture of it's not just a Utah culture. This is any like heavily religious like area or just like strict parents and stuff. When you're like, oh, I can actually do what I want. For some reason, you freaking just do whatever you want, like but to every sense of the word. It's like, I'm gonna try crack cocaine. It's like, dude, you weren't even drinking Coke last week, like Coca-Cola. You're gonna try Coke? This is insane. What do you mean? Oh man. Well, how did you freaking get there? Like, did you grow up? You didn't grow up in a family they were all active, and I know it's a long story, but any key pointers? Like, how did you get where you were at, where you were like literally selling drugs and getting raided by the cops?
Yeah, no, I can tell. I mean, so like you mentioned, I grew up in the church. My dad was a bishop. After that, he was a stake president, and he was a stake president when all this was actually happening. And I got whole tons of stories about that. About my dad made a lot of sacrifices. I mean, my parents, I always preface by letting people know that I really respect the way my parents handled things. And like for everything that was going on, I would say they did a pretty dang good job. Granted, I made some mistakes. They made some mistakes. I was a tough egg. It was not just like some casual, like just, oh, he kind of just like got a tattoo or something. Like, just like I was one of those that swan dove off the, from the iron rod straight to the water. I'm going, like I'm looking for the building that they all told me about. Right. And so
I'm swimming around. Like, where's the
building? Where's all the fun at? They said this was going to be a good
time.
Find
me, bro.
I got the invite, bro. They told me it says right here, great and spacious building. I can't find it anywhere. But yeah, so that's the interesting thing is that like, I grew up, I was Deacon's Quorum president, super involved in the church. Man, bro, Roy's dying.
I'm dying.
Sorry, dude. I'm coughing. I've got a cough too, so I'm like trying.
No, it's all Jude. It's all Jude. I love it. I love it. So yeah, that was kind of later on in life. But anyways, yeah, so I grew up in the church. Things were good. And then, to kind of keep it short and focus on the key points, I started dating a girl who wasn't a member of the church. And, she wasn't necessarily like a horrible influence, but she wasn't a member. And like, for her, it wasn't like that big of a deal. Things of like the law of chastity or like if you drink a little bit, but she wasn't like an alcoholic or like a stoner. She just was like kind of a normal kid. And like you guys, I grew up in a small town, tons of crazy stuff happening all the time. There was like our biggest attraction was a mini golf course in the middle of an RV park. And that was like the big thing that we had. Besides that, like,
hey, we are not that small.
Oh,
we weren't that small. That's freaking tiny, bro. That's
it's small. Like they did a town celebration when we got our first roundabout. Everyone was there, and it's like, bro, we got a roundabout.
Okay, yeah.
No, dude,
yours, bro.
Dude, if 30 kids from your town died, you would cut the population by like a quarter.
Like,
that's crazy,
exactly.
dude.
Some gnarly percentages here.
That's so small, dude. That's so.
Yeah, it was small. I think we had like about 1,000 kids in the high school, maybe less than that. Maybe like, I think it's like 700 or 800. It's like bigger now, but when I was going through high school, it was about 8,000 to 10,000, and now it's up to like 17,000. So it's like growing a lot. But back then, I mean, like I mentioned, kids die all the time. Kids fall off the path, and like all this crazy stuff happens, right? And so anyway, so that was kind of that. The initial thing was my girlfriend, right? And then my parents kind of found out about it, and in the church, they always say like, "Oh, you can't date till you're 16." I'm like, "Okay, dog, like I'm away." Which, like, I mean, I ain't gonna lie, I had a girlfriend in 7th grade, anyways, but like, it wasn't anything serious, right? But we all had that, some fling or something. So, but I'm like, bet as soon as I turn 16, like, I get to have a girlfriend. It's gonna be sick. And I turned 16.
Yeah, you didn't read the fine. You didn't read the fine print, brother.
Dude, I didn't, dude.
You didn't. You never studied, dude. I studied the dating part in the strength of youth, like I was a lawyer looking for loopholes, dude. I tried so hard. I was like, "Mom, look," and she's like, "You're reading that out of context. Like, read the." I'm like, "No, Mom, I read that part so much, dude." Oh man. Anyways, continue. Sorry.
It's true. I mean, that's how it was. I didn't read, just like you said, I read the fine print. So I turned 16, and then I get a girlfriend, and they're like, "Oh no, you can date, but you can't." You can go on dates, but you can't steady date. And I'm like, come on, fam. I've been looking forward to this since like the day I was born. Like, and so anyway, so I started dating this girl, dude. And so they found out about it. I came home and they're like, "Hey, you're moving to Utah and you leave tomorrow." And I was like, "All right, bet. I just got to think this over and kind of process some things." But in my mind, I already knew what I was going to do. So I like grabbed some money, ran away, ran out the front door, got
Did you wait? Did you come up with this idea to run before, or was it something that happened like in the moment? They were like, "You're going to Utah," and you were like, "All right, I'm out of here." Like, was this a plan that you had already made, or did you do it in like 5 minutes? Like,
no, they came home and they told me I was moving to Utah, and it was like a switch just flipped in my head, and I was like, "Yeah, okay, I got to run away." That was just like the next thing that was like, "Okay, I got to like change their mind." And so, like, in my mind, I'm like, okay, I got to run away and be gone long enough to like scare them into not making me go to Utah, basically, was my idea. Right. And so
foolproof.
So that's what I did. Right. Oh, we're going to say something, Kevin?
Foolproof, bro.
Yeah, exactly, dude. It's 100%. I was ready to go. I had my craftsman knife and $14. That's what I grabbed. So, yeah, and I'm like,
hey, you buy 2 stacks of Xanax with that, bro.
Yeah. I got like a Butterfinger and a knife. Like I'm basically, I got nothing. I didn't even have my phone, dude. I had no phone.
Jeez, bro. And then you just hopped on a, like, what happened? I know that you told this story on the Comeback podcast, but I do want to break this down a little bit because I feel like she did not ask enough questions.
Yeah, she was.
Because long story.
I was like, wait, dude, you this is 3 states we're talking about here.
Okay, wait, yeah. We don't want to jump too far ahead here, but
Sorry.
Long story short, you stole a car and then just drove to Utah, which, by the way, what a turn of events. Your parents were like, "We're going to send you to Utah." You're like, "Screw you, I'm going to drive to Utah."
It's like you're fine. You're like, no, I quit. You know.
So you drove to Utah. Now, my question is, from Colorado to Utah, you're gonna need more than $14 worth of gas.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah,
how did you do that?
So backing up a little bit. So to get the car, I first I was on foot, right? And I was waiting around the corner, and then I saw my mom come around with the van, and I was anticipating that they were come after me, right? So I was hiding in some trees, and they came after me with the van, and then my mom dipped, and then I left to go the other way that my mom went. And my plan was to go to my best friend's house, and figure it out from there, right? But anyways, then I turn around and I see my dad on the bike, and I'm like, oh, you gotta be kidding me. So then that's when I ran to the Denny's parking lot. I talked about this in the Comeback podcast, I'm pretty sure. I ran to the Denny's parking lot, threw some sprinklers, and I go to, where all terrified kids go. I ran to McDonald's, and I run inside. My dad drops the bike.
Golden arches, baby.
Amen, dude. The golden arches, dude. So I pop in, I show up, and I come in, and then my dad drops the bike. He comes in to grab me. I vault the table and run outside, and then I GTA the bike, and I dip, and then my mom's coming after me, and he's running after me, right? So now I got the bike. My mom's like honking at the stoplight, and my dad's like running, and I always tell this one because it's so funny. I love this guy, but I'm riding a bike down the road, past the tire shop. My dad's running after me, and this guy rolls down the window, and he's like, "Hey, what'd you do?" And I was like, "They're trying to send me to Utah with a bunch of Mormons." He's like, "Keep going." So I keep ripping, and then long story short, to cut to the chase, I wound up riding my bike to a senior center and cut my jeans into shorts. From the senior center, I stole a nightgown, and I put that on my shoulders to change my appearance. And I ended up running into an ambulance at one point, but they didn't realize that I was the kid who'd run away. I already knew the cops were involved because I changed my whole appearance, right? So the cops were involved. The ambulance didn't know that I was the kid that was missing, whatever. And then I run to my best friend's house, grabbed the car. So the car had about half a tank of gas in it. First place I drive was to Green River. Well, actually, I just found out recently it was Salida. Because I kept telling people, I remember the first night I went there, I parked in front of these giant soda cans, like a giant Sprite, a giant Coke, and a giant Fanta or something. But they're tanks of gas or water or something. And so I remember I parked there, and I thought that was in Green River. Turns out it was in Salida. And at this time, it was right next to a Chevron that was a car repair shop. But I pull up, I park there, and I walk into one Denny's, and I sit down in this server. I mean, even though it's only the first night, I already look rough. I'm not having a good time. I've just been through a lot. I don't have my phone. I just stole a car. I'm also wearing a nightgown from a senior center, and my jeans are cut into shorts. I just don't look that great, right? And so she sees me, and she's kind of talking to me what's going on? And I told her the story and everything. She's like, well, I don't know if I should call the cops or cheer you on. I was like, how about you cheer me on? She's like, okay. And then she got me some food, and that was chill. And so shout out to that lady. Cannot remember her name. She worked at the Denny's over there.
Yeah. Shout out to the lady that was helping you run away from home, dude.
I know, dude, exactly. Harboring a runaway, dude. So then I dipped from there, and I went into this gas station. I walk up to the lady, and I was like, hey, look, I'm just kind of down on my luck. Could I mop your floors to just get a little bit of cash? She's like, hey, we gotta be worried about liability if you fall or something like that. But hey, we keep a bucket here of some cash for just when people are down on their luck or whatever. So she gave me $15. Wow. So I'm like, all right, bet. Side quest completed. Got $15 now. So I'm like,
let's total. So
you're narrating this like it's GTA, bro.
Yeah, I know, but this is side quest complete. So you have $29.
$29, yep.
Okay, all right. Now we're cooking right now.
I'm going. Yeah, I'm doing good. It gets crazier. So I had that. I got the 29. At this point, the car probably had maybe an eighth of a tank of gas. So I did not have a lot of gas in there. I didn't have to buy any food at this point. And so I go the next morning. I spend the night in the car. I wake up and I find this dude, and I'm like, hey, I fiddle this whole story. I'm like, listen, my parents are in St. George, and I'm trying to get back to them. I don't have my phone. I don't have their number memorized. all I know is how to get to where they are. And I have no money for gas. I was like, could I sell you these golf clubs in the back of my car? Which turns out were my best friend's brother's golf clubs that his dad had gifted him. So that was
Oh
like
my gosh. How
big
much did you
L.
sell them for, dude?
$50.
No.
Yeah.
No.
But we got the golf clubs back. So they went back to him,
What?
which is crazy. Yeah. So after the whole thing happened, I told my best friend's mom that we're just kind of telling her everything. And I was like thinking it wasn't gonna be that big of a deal because I was thinking like, oh, they're just some old golf clubs in the back of the car. Like he doesn't even golf. He probably just like had, so I didn't think it was that big of a deal. But I told his mom, and his mom and his dad were separated. And when I'm on my way back with my dad at this point, I'm on the phone with her and she's like, oh no. She's like, you can't tell Steve that, which is her ex-husband. She's like, you cannot tell him like he'll probably kill you. Like you cannot say anything. And the dad was already like super pressed about the whole thing because he was like friends with our family and all this drama happened and all this because of that, which obviously, it was a mistake, right? I'm not like proud that I stole the car, right?
Right.
But yeah, so I called my sister who was living in Utah and I'm like, hey, can you drive to this gas station and buy these golf clubs back from the guy? And so she pulled up and she saw him. She told me afterwards that he said he was pretty confident that everything was totally fake and that I just needed money. And so he just bought the golf clubs. And so my sister went back. I'm pretty sure he just gave them back or something. So he was a real G.
Dang, nice of that guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
So okay, so now we have $79.
$79. So
Dude,
I fill up the car with gas.
Man, I'm not even worried anymore. You're chilling. You're
Well,
chilling, bro.
I was chilling until I pull up. I get to St. George. Well, a quick little side note story. At one point, I'm driving there. I know how to get to Utah, but where I'm going to St. George is my aunt's vacation home. I'd only been there like one time, I think I've been there twice, and I never drove there. I went there when I was a kid, and all I knew about the place is that it was right next to the trailhead of like a mountain biking course. That's all I knew about it. Literally no other point of reference. And so at one point I'm driving and I'm like, okay, I'm getting to Utah, but like, actually I'm in Green River, so I'm in Utah, but I'm like, I don't know like where to go. So I walk into this gas station. Like I said, I'm looking rough. And now this is day 2. This is after sleeping, right? So I'm still looking gnarly. And I just walk over to this guy and I look at him and he looks at me and I pull out an atlas and I'm looking at the pages and I see one that's Utah and Colorado and Arizona. And I'm looking at it and I just look at the guy and he just gives me a nod. He goes, and I just ripped the page out of the book and put it back on the shelf. And he didn't say a word. And I just walked out. So that guy was a real G too. He was, he just let me rip the page out of the book. No words were exchanged. But like that guy's a legend for that for sure. So and then I get to St. George. At this point, I have like maybe because I had to buy, it's a decent amount of gas to get there. I'm trying to think of how much money I have. I think I had like maybe like $12 or something like that when I pull up. And well, first of all, when I get to St. George, I roll into town. I'm like, okay, I'm hoping I'm going to recognize anything. I literally don't recognize anything at all. So I walk into a hotel and I talk to this guy and I'm like, hey, dog, I'm trying to find my aunt's house. I've only been there twice. All I know is it's in town and it was right next to a mountain biking course. And he's like, oh, yeah. I'm pretty sure. Here, take this. And he gives me this flyer and it has like highlighted this mountain biking course. He's like, you're right here. Just follow this road, go there. He literally hands me this little mini map. And I'm like, all right, I guess I'm going to go. So I go there and it's literally her house. And I'm like, you're joking. Like St. George is massive. And like,
yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's like in the neighborhoods too. It's not like out in the boonies. Like it's like I had to go through a bunch of neighborhoods and turns and stuff, and I just pull up to the trailhead, and I'm like, this is crazy. So it was lucky I found the house, and so I get there, I pull the car in the garage. Well, because I had the key, I knew where the spare key was. I took the spare key, I unlocked the door, hit the garage door opener, open the garage door, pull the car in, and then I go to take the key to unlock the house, and it doesn't unlock the house. And I'm like, bro, you gotta be kidding me. I'm cooked. Like, I got $12 left. I have no money. It's in the middle of the day. It's in the middle of July, so it's super hot outside. So I didn't know what to do. And I walk outside and then there in the grass, I found a faded $50 bill just chilling in the front yard. And I'm like, it's like in the best 2 years, you know, when the guy calls and the phone finally rings, and then it's just, oh, it literally was like that, bro. Exactly. And I'm like, okay, God wants me to do this. I'm cooking. I'm good. So like, you know, I'm like, I guess I got to keep going. So that's when, you know, from there, I drove to Flagstaff. There I tried to use my debit card to try and pull some money out because I'd gotten paid. It's like 2 days later. And I did it in Flagstaff because I don't want my parents to know exactly where I was. I knew that if they did have access to my account, they'd be able to see where I pulled the money out. And then I go to Phoenix. I ended up in Flagstaff as well. I stuck into a hotel, used a computer, made a fake Facebook, reached out to my buddy to see if I could come stay with him. And then Taylor Jones is his name. Shout out to the boy. But anyways, yeah. So I reached out to him, drive to Phoenix, and I hadn't heard back from him. Didn't have any way to contact or anything. So that was kind of then when I called my parents, and my dad came. And well, actually, I got thrown in juvie that time because yeah, I forgot about that part.
I didn't hear about that part of the story. So you got thrown into juvie in Phoenix?
In Phoenix, yeah. Because what happened, this is crazy. This part, I cannot clearly tell you exactly what happened. All I know is a miracle from God. But I know that I called my mom, and I remember calling her. We had the conversation. She's like, yeah, don't worry. I called him like, hey, I'm not in a state touching Colorado. I mean, I guess a corner, but like, I'm not touching Colorado. And I'm not coming home till you guys change your mind. And then she's like, okay, yeah. No, like, just tell us where you are. And I'm like, look, I just want a hotel for the night, and then I'll come home. Like, I promise I'll come home. And so she's like, yeah. There's a member from our ward. Sister Mertz was her name, and she was living in Phoenix. And she's like, yeah, you just need to go to her house. And I don't know how I got there, or like how I got directions, or how, I don't know if she came to where I was and I followed her there. I have no idea, but somehow I get to Sister Mertz's house. So I pull up, park the car, and I'm like, at this point, I hadn't really slept that whole ton, you know, a little bit, but I'm like dead tired. And I pass out. This is also happening at like, it's pretty early in the morning, and like I hadn't really slept. So I come in and I just pass out. And they were worried I was going to try and run again as soon as I woke up and just got a place to sleep. So I woke up that morning and the cops are there and they have handcuffs. And I just wake up and they're like, yeah, you're coming with us. And I was like, ooh, yikes.
You're like, jeez, dude, yep. I'm sleeping, bro. I'm
sleeping, dude. Give me a break. Yeah. So they take me and they take me to juvie. And I remember the guy, he's like, okay, listen, dog, you can't make eye contact with anybody. I'm like, what? He's like, don't make eye contact. And I'm like, this guy's crazy, like, whatever. And so, like, I'm like looking at people, no worries. And like, and then at one point he's like, hey, stop making eye contact. I'm like, oh gosh, okay. And so, and I remember too, so they put me in a cell and I'm there just waiting. I remember too, the guards were talking about, it was Prime Day. I think it was the first year Amazon did Prime Day. Because they're all talking about, bro, you got to check out Prime Day. I'm about to get an Echo Dot, like 20 bones, something like that, all this. And I'm just there like, this is crazy. I just ran away, stole a car. I'm 2 states away. And like, they're talking about Prime Day. But
dude, anyways, we could do a movie. It's like at the very beginning, it's like, yeah, that's me. I bet you're wondering how I got here. Sitting in a jail cell in Phoenix, Arizona, and you're from a small town in Colorado, and it's only been 3 days. That's insane. Yep.
It's true, dude. That's how it can start. Exactly like that. So it's funny because I still kept making eye contact with people. And he's like, all right, bro, that's enough. So they took me to like, it would be like the juvie equivalent of like solitary confinement, where they just put me in a room, no window, and like a metal, like bed, basically. It's not even a bed. It's just like a big shelf you can lay on. And I'm like, come on, bro. I just can't help myself. I just look at people. So, yeah. So, anyways, yeah. So then my dad came.
This is a free country. Freaking van.
Yeah, exactly. Come on. Yeah. So
dang, bro.
It's crazy. At this point, I'm back. My dad comes. He picks me up. He drives me back. We get home, and then that's when they're like, "Hey, so you're insane, pretty much. They're like, you're kind of crazy." Like,
guys, so sorry. We might have to cut this out, but I have to go do irrigation real quick. So I'll be right back.
So should we keep talking?
Huh?
Hey, Roy.
Yo.
Should we pause? Should we pause the story?
I mean, I don't want to make Van take too long. He can keep talking. It's just going to be to you and not to me.
Okay.
All right.
So I'll mute my side. Or does that sound good? Is that okay?
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. All good. Yeah. So I get back, and then I'm back, and then my parents like, yeah. So you're pretty Like most kids don't do that, right? And I'm like, yeah, I know. Like I should have done that, right? So and the other agreement was that the family that I stole the car from, they're like, hey, if you get him some help, like we won't press any charges. So they're like, just get him some help or something. So my parents found this wilderness camp, which, it's so funny. They're telling me, they're like, yeah, it's going to be great. There's going to be horseback riding and you're going to stay in a cabin and it's going to be this great time. It's just going to be really spiritually cleansing. I'm like, all right, it sounds chill. Like, let's do it. And to be fair, on the website, it was called Anasazi is the name of the wilderness camp. On the website, even today, if you go on there, like it talks about all these good things it does for youth and how it's cleansing and helping. But like, they really don't tell you what you do there. Like, they don't really say anything. So like, I can't really blame my parents for telling me that. I don't even think they were lying. It's just kind of like what they thought I was going to be doing. So they sent me to this wilderness camp. This is in the Tonto National Forest in Phoenix, or in Arizona, close to Mesa. And they sent me there and like, we're eating pizza in the car. We drive like a 6-hour drive in the car to get where we're starting. And they pull us out and I get like a 2 tarps, pack string, boots, a sleeping bag, this thing they call a burrito, which you put around your sleeping bag to make it waterproof, a metal cup, 1 roll of toilet paper, a bag of like rice and lentils. And we just like get out and they just like drop us off there with these 2 guys, me and this other kid. And they just like drop us off. And
It was just you two?
Yeah, it's me and this other kid and then the 2 adults. Yeah.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah. So they're called trail walkers, or what the adults are called. So me and this other young walker is what they call me. And this other young walker out there we're like there. And the first night, they're not really like talking to us, really. They're just like kind of being silent and stuff. And they're just kind of like, I'm like, yo, what are we supposed to do? And they're like, do what we're doing. And I'm like, okay. So they like build a fire, but they didn't like pull out a lighter. They had a bow drill and a coal catcher and a tinder bundle. And they like make a fire. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, like, so I started asking them, like, what about like the cabins? And like, are we gonna do like archery and like horseback riding and stuff? And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, that's what my parents said. They're like, oh no, this is like a wilderness survival camp. Like, we don't do any of that. I'm like, oh, okay. I mean, I'm now like literally a 6-hour drive away from civilization.
You're like halfway through your toilet paper roll. You're like, oh,
dang. Because I should have been a little more sparing with this guy then, huh? Yeah. And like the crazy thing, the kid I was with, I'm just gonna tell everything. If the podcast is super long and you want to cut stuff out, I won't even be mad at all. I'm just gonna say everything.
That's fine with that.
Dude, content is content. I care, bro.
Amen. Yeah. So I'm just telling us. So there's this kid we're there with Rabbit Stick. We pull up and he sits on a bucket. Oh, it's frozen. Can you also hear me?
I can hear you. You see me?
Okay, baby. So he sits on this bucket and bro does not say a word. Not a single word out of his mouth. He's just sitting on his bucket. And I'm like, okay, this guy's maybe going to kill me tonight, but like, that's all right. And he's chill and he's just not saying anything. And so they're like trying to get him to talk and they're focusing all their effort on this kid because he's literally not doing anything. And I'm just like chilling. And I found out later, this is called Rabbit Stick. Your first 3 days are called Rabbit Stick. And you're supposed to do a bunch of hiking and do all this stuff. Well, we weren't hiking at all because bro was not talking and he literally did not move. And so like at all, like even through the night, like he just sat on his bucket and just sat there and didn't speak. And they like made him food and tried to talk. And he just was like frozen. And so I'm like, all right, this is whatever. And so he's there for 3 days that we're there in Rabbit Stick. And this kid just literally does not move like once. He's just sitting there like frozen. I found out later from a different trail walker when I linked back up with him later on in the trail, like 4 weeks later, 6 weeks later, he said that kid that was with me had autism and his parents brought him there to try and help him. So it's kind of like a last resort. And so when he went there, he just like froze up. And then they pulled him out. Like none of the kids make it out of the camp without just like going through the whole thing. Like that just doesn't happen unless you get like seriously injured. And I'm talking seriously, more on that later. But anyways, like, so this kid leaves and then the trail walkers are like, all right, bro, here's a story. We got to cook. Like we got 3 days of hiking to make up and we got like 6 hours till it's dark. So like, you got to get ready to buckle down. We got to like book it. So we're just like trail running for like 6 hours until we finally met up with the other boy band. We get there, it's dark outside, and we pull up, and then there's like 12 other boys there now and like 3 other trail walkers. I'm like, oh, okay, this is kind of more chill. And that first night was hell. It was horrible. I mean, this wasn't the first night on the trail. This was technically the fourth night, but it was my first night like outside of the camp, because the first night I was there for 3 days. I made a little shelter. I had my little camp set up. I had a little shelf.
Yeah, you were thriving. You were
dude,
thriving,
I'm
bro.
chilling. Yeah, so which is I earned both. You get to earn like a hick, which is one knife like this big that's meant for cooking, and then you earn your frost, which is a super sharp knife like this big by carving your first spoon. And I earned both of them in the first like 2 days, and found out that. So I got both my knives. We hike. We meet up with the boy band, and we didn't have time to build a shelter, and so I did this thing that they called face tarping, because it poured rain that night, and you literally just put a tarp over your face like a blanket and try and sleep. And I didn't sleep a wink that night, not for even a minute, not 30 seconds. Like I was literally awake the whole night, and I'm like, I'm gonna die. This is the end. This is where my story ends. Like I'm not doing this. Like I'm like, tomorrow I'm gonna run and I'm gonna sprint 6-hour drive to civilization. Like
yeah, he's running again. He's a born runner, dude. He's a born runner.
So I got up, and they're like, okay, we hiked about 8 hours a day. Every day we hiked. And so I like get up, and then ironically, I met one of the guys there who knew someone from my hometown, which was crazy. He was engaged to one of the people in my hometown's like daughter from like our ward. And so I'm like, okay, maybe this is a sign that I need to like stay here and chill. So I didn't run, right? Start hiking. And I find out that of all the other boys at the current point, all the other boys in my boy band were all court ordered by a judge to be there. So I'm like, dang, fam, like respectfully, I did steal a car, but it's because I had a girlfriend. And all these other kids are like, yeah, so I was selling drugs. I got in a cop chase and I crashed a car and killed 2 bystanders. And I'm like, oh, like these are like, these are the big dogs, dude. Like, so yeah, so it's kind of crazy. So anyways, I'm there at the wilderness camp. I won't tell all the stories, but I got to tell one. I got to tell one crazy story from the wilderness camp.
I was going to say, especially since you said, like, and I mean, no injuries.
Yeah.
They keep you out there, dude. You break your leg, splint it up, baby. Like,
bro, dude. It's so, if I had known this from the beginning, like, I probably would have, like, wrote a letter to my parents in, like, some crazy code that says, like, get me out of here. I'm going to die. I would have done, like, some crazy, like, I don't even know what you, like, some prison break letter with, like, symbols that only they would know or something. And I would send them a message or something, because like it was kind of crazy. But so there's this kid, I gotta explain 2 characters. This kid named James. James is 12 years old. He's the youngest one there. James got sent there because he was a little bit stubby, just a little chunky on the chunky side. Awesome kid, right? Crazy anger issues. But he was in the lunch line, and the lunch ladies told him that he was being a brat, so they weren't going to give him his dessert. So James gets pressed, and he reaches around the lunch line, grabs a lunch lady by the ponytail, and smashes her head into the glass above the food. And we're like, oh my gosh, like this kid's a little, he's
ain't gonna take crap from no one, bro.
I know, dude. Exactly, dude. The lunch lady, she got it. It was so sad. Yeah, so I'm like, dang, James is crazy.
She goes,
so
I'll never make that mistake again, bro.
I know, yeah, dude. He told us all that, and I'm like, all right, well, if I die, it's because of him for sure. So yeah, so James, he's a bit crazy. And there's this other kid named Michael. Okay, so Michael got sent there. First of all, I got to say Michael was 16 years old, and he had a 3-year-old son named David. Okay, you had 3 years and 9 months. Bro was cooking at a young age. That's crazy. Like, that's nuts. But anyway, so
that'd be a record. Holy frick!
I know,
like,
dude.
I was like 12, dude.
Yeah, I'm like, dude, is that biologically even possible? But hey, that's Michael. Yeah, my mind's blown. So that's Michael. Michael, his first day on the camp, he brought an 8-ball of meth with him. And the whole thing about the wilderness camp is they're all about natural consequences. So like if you're fighting, they're like, okay, unless you're gonna like kill each other, like we're not gonna break it up. Like you gotta figure it out. Like you gotta conflict revolution, all this. Like if you're not gonna build a shelter, like that's fine. But like if it rains, you're gonna have a horrible night. So like if you don't want to do something, we're not gonna make you do it. But like if you don't, you're gonna be miserable. And like if you don't hike, you don't get food. And if you don't get food, you die. And like so yeah, that's the whole thing. So they're like,
dude, I kind of want to go to one of these. Just they sound cool if you're not mixed up in like drugs and stuff. Like I feel like it's a cool scout camp. You know?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's even like, if people go there voluntarily, it's really good. If you don't go there voluntarily or you're tricked into going there, it's typically like, like whatever. It's good, but it's not like life. I mean, for some people, it's life changing. Who knows? And yeah, so Michael has 8 ball of meth. And so they're like, all right, look, we can't have you smoking meth with the other boys. So, like, we're going to take you on a walkabout. But, like, if you're going to smoke meth, you just need to know that, like, you can't make meth in the woods. So you're just going to have really bad withdrawals in a week. So we're going to take you on a walkabout, which means they just take him separate from all the other boys and 2 trail walkers. And they're like, look, if you want to smoke it, like, yeah, we're not going to stop you. But, like, it's just going to make your life worse. Well, bro just went out and smoked 8 ball of meth over, like, 3 days. And just got high on meth in the woods, and then had horrible withdrawals and came back. And he was there because he did get in a police chase. He stole his dad's car and got in a police chase or something. And in the chase, he wrecked, and I think he killed a police officer, actually.
Oh my gosh.
Super sad. But, like,
this is the guy that has a kid at a 3-year-old kid?
Oh, yeah. So this is Michael. So Michael loved I got to tell the story to both the kids to kind of paint the picture of what happened, right? So Michael was the kind of guy who loved poking the nest always, however he could. And so they give you like a trail walker name when you go on the trail. My trail walker name was Sunset Tomahawk. Michael's was Red Dancing Bull because this kid, like, bro, when he goes and he charges, like, you just got to get out the way because, like, he's just crazy. And he loves just making people mad and aggravating people and stuff like that. So anyways, James, who's 12 and was crying every day, found this rock on the ground that reminded him of his mother's hair. And he's walking, and, we're kind of like, it's weird, but, like, the kid's 12, and it made him hike more, and we just wanted to hike because, like, when you're sitting there and you're bored, it's just like, it's like staying in the apartment when you're a missionary. It's just the worst. Oh. Like, you just want to go out and, like, do stuff. So then, James is like, he's got this rock. He decides to hike and all this stuff, and he's holding it while he's hiking, and we're all chill with it. But Michael, of course, decides to walk up in the middle of the hike, and he grabs the rock, steals it from James, and just bombs it into the woods. And we're like,
oh no, dude.
Dang it. We're like, dude, he's not been crying. We finally found something to let him just be chill, and you guys just bomb it into the woods. Like, come on. So anyways, James he turned into Optimus Prime, bro. He just transformed. And he just like, and he gets so mad. He's like, and Michael's just like laughing and so, and James just like, and you can tell like something just broke inside of him. So whenever we had James, we always had to be on knife arrest because he literally told people he was going to kill them like every day. He's like, tonight I'm going to slit your throat while you're sleeping. So he's crazy, right? So we didn't have any of our knives, but he runs up to one of the trail walkers, grabs a rock file from out of their pack and runs back and goes, or no, Michael's ahead of it at this point. So he runs up to the trail walker, grabs it, runs up to Michael. Michael's still laughing. And he just runs up and goes right here in the temple, straight in Michael's head. And he just drops. Michael literally just drops immediately. And we're like, that guy, he's dead. That bro, he's 100% dead. Like, that's crazy. So anyways, Michael gets life-lighted to a hospital there on the trail. And obviously James, like, they took him on a walkabout. They separated him. Michael goes, and I got to say, just so you guys are on your seat, Michael was fine. Crazy enough, even beyond that, he came back on the trail like 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, because they didn't send him home or anything. James was a lot shorter than him. So, I mean, this is my understanding. It went in and down. So it didn't go like in his brain. It just went like in his face. So, which is crazy that, he was fine. They took him to the hospital. And he told us when he got back that while he was at the hospital, he still ate the same food that you eat on the trail. They fed him the same things. Because if they didn't, kids would break their legs to go and eat normal food. And like if I knew that was an option, dude, 100%. No question. Like, bro, cook my knees. I'm chill. If I could get a burrito or like some normal food, like, I'm so down. So, yeah.
Oh,
so that was crazy.
Gosh. Bro, amount of stories that we're getting right now. I wasn't expecting this much like this many
Back
good
podcast
stories.
didn't prepare me for this, dude. Holy frick.
Yeah, dude. The comeback podcast was G-rated, bro. It was chilled out. That is insane.
James will freaking watch out for
Yeah.
James.
Dude, hey, do you keep in contact with any of those guys? Like, you know, if James
Okay.
is like in prison or
Yeah, I don't know about James, Mike. So there were two guys that I met. I met one guy named McCoy and then my boy Ben. McCoy, I stayed in contact with him for a little while. I have him on Snap, but I haven't downloaded Snap in a while, so I haven't talked to him in a bit. Ben, I actually went out way later on in life and sold home security with him in Tennessee and then Louisiana. And he was a G. And so they were the only other two kids that were sent there, not by a judge. They were sent there because our parents were members of the church. And they saw that this camp was founded by a guy who was a professor at BYU. And they're like, okay, it's not like by the church, but it's like by the church. So
that,
so
dude.
that was, you know,
wow.
Oh, there's one story I gotta tell real quick from the camp. Okay, so
Keep going, bro. This is great.
so there's I don't know if you guys have ever seen the famous pictures. They're called Reflections of Christ.
Yeah.
Or there's
Yeah.
you know those pictures?
Yeah.
Or so the actor for Jesus Christ in those pictures, his name is Rob Allen. He's actually from Mesa, Arizona.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he owns a garbage truck company, which I just love that, or a trash can company or something like that. Super awesome guy. And so we got linked up with him years prior at this like stake-wide play that we did with a bunch of different stakes, and he was the actor for Jesus Christ. And so he knew my dad from that event. And so I told my parents in one of my letters, my parents have all my letters from there from somewhere. I don't know where it is now, but I told them something about like, hey, like, can you guys like send me a Book of Mormon? Because like you didn't have anything. Like we didn't have anything to read, anything to do. So I'm like, hey, I can tell them something, but like I know they'll figure out a way. Like they'll drop it in from a helicopter if needed be. Like that's my parents. Like they would walk it over there themselves barefoot if it came down to it, right? So, anyways, so then I tell them that, and then one day we're just hiking, and I just look out, and they're like, hey, like Van, they're like, you got a visitor, and I'm like, okay, and I look and I see two trail walkers, and they're walking with a man who just literally looks like Jesus Christ, like to the max. And I'm like, and he just emerges from the woods. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And I didn't recognize him at first. And I'm like, is this like what's going on here? Like I was just blown up, right? You know, I'm like, this is kind of crazy. And he's holding a copy of the Book of Mormon. And I'm like, okay, well, like so he walks over, and it was Rob Allen, the actor for Jesus Christ. And he came in. And he lived there. So my dad contacted him, and he was like, yeah, I will go. So he hiked like 4 hours. He drove 6 hours to get there, then hiked 4 hours with two trail walkers to hand deliver me a copy of the Book of Mormon. So, which was a really cool thing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. So after the camp, you just came home and you were straight edged and you never did anything wrong ever again, and you went on a mission, right? That's how it went?
Nah, bro, not even close. I wish, dude. I wish that was it. That would have been amazing, you know. Yeah, so I got back.
Oh, sorry.